In 2017, Krule came together to release one of the best albums of all time, in my opinion, the OOZ. Here's why I think it's so great.
The OOZ. The OOZ.
The OOZ.
Krule's The OOZ is such a great album to me just of the experience it gives you alone. Hearing the beautiful yet broken instrumentation, Archie Marshall's raw and raspy voice displaying poetic and expressive lyrics, recorded and mixed in such a way that makes you feel consumed with Archie on his journey through the sunken place.
Now that I'm about the sunken place, I can think.
Archie has stated that this album is the musical representation of the subconscious oozing we do as humans.
You know, every day we're creating all of these disgusting, gunky substances from us. We're shaving, we're cutting our hair, we're trimming our nails, we've got snot, we got, you know what I mean? We've got all of that slime inside of us. It's about that, and I guess it's like the audio representation.
I think it gives you this with different moods, feelings and vibes throughout the whole record. You hear heavy and aggressive in your face tracks, progressive heart-wrenching tracks, to smooth low-key expressions that are almost like elevator music, which is also something you experience with such little thought in the background, like the subconscious oozing of a human being. The ooze forces us to pay attention to the oozing, yet allows us to experience the different ways we ooze in different fashions. Even outside of this concept, the ooze is a big journey, yet a journey I find hard to forget. On my first listen, I wasn't excited, I wasn't happy, wasn't sad or disappointed. I was confused on the experience I just had. It was like no other to me, and I listened to the album about 10 times that day until I could at least process my initial thoughts. Still to this day, I feel new things when listening to it. It consumes me. I can't just listen to one song from the OOZ without wanting to listen to the entire album. This album feels like you wake up in a random town you've never heard of, and as each track plays, it's like something new happens as you walk through. Experience the oddness of such a place. On the first track, Archie tells you he is sinking lower into his current surroundings. I take this as him describing cabin fever literally and also mentally. The feeling of being sunk for so long consumes you more and more as you sink lower and lower into a state that feels unreal. That seems to happen with this album, especially as you get deeper into the journey of this record. You hear him sinking on Biscuit Town, his frustrations of being sunk on the locomotive. On Slush Puppy he's frustrated even more. Although he is frustrated, this track is almost like he starts to get angry and fed up, but the shortness of it is almost like he stops himself from totally snapping. Yet, as the comforting poem comes in afterwards, which is conveniently followed by logos, the haunting tale of his connection with a girl, which he touched on in this Pitchfork interview, where he describes how a girl brought his passion back to life, making him want to create and build again. Archie often makes reference to his mental instability and issues he faces throughout this record, and with it musically taking you into a sunken place, it makes you feel like you are accompanied by someone who gets it. Someone as trapped as you are, it makes you feel somewhat okay to be there. Even at this point, where the album seems to calm down, you see Archie tell you calmly about what he is experiencing and demonstrating the ooze. You get random spurts of madness, which could represent the bipolar he questioned in Biscuit Town. I think he thinks I'm bipolar, which foreshadowed this point in the album to me. He is with this girl, yet him having these spurts worries him that she thinks he is unwell. These spurts happen on the track Emergency Blimp, where he gives his frustration with his chronic insomnia that he hasn't yet found a cure for. On the track Slide In, he says, "I'm used to saying, I don't belong, a burdened youth, outcast from young, but how are you? I'm wasting your own time." This segment is him detailing to the girl that he hasn't healed himself and he is now wasting her time by being this way. It is a haunting track, and as you listen deeply and get into the gorgeous instrumentation at the end of it, it cuts off suddenly and in comes Vigil, a heavy, crazy all over the place punk sounding record. This is detailing the same relationship in my opinion. She can't relate to him or understand him because she wasn't raised like him. She isn't in the sunken place like he is, and he hasn't found the right tools to cure it yet, to rinse through all its wrongs. Saw that girl again one time, and now I know it's done. He says he knows it's done now, and he details how he follows her on her journey and observes her as she is torched and how she scatters just like one of the people, which to me shows how sunk Archie is at this point, how he sees people as almost a different species to him. With that so, this is the second time of comfort in the album for me, from the point of view of his father, with the same poem as earlier, just read in English, which is followed by a track with his father featured on and in homage to him, Half Man, Half Shark. On this track, he details how he was left in the dark, He questions if his emotive rush was what fried his brain, but accepting he'll never know the true cause. He discusses his detachment from the current world and how he can't explain things, how you couldn't understand, how he struggles to get together with anyone in this land. He even finishes with, "See world, you'll never know. At least when you look to the stars, they still glow. Not for me though, body and head are empty, even when we're toe to toe. I suppose I'll forever be the only one who knows, aspirations ingrown, I'll forever be alone." Which is a point where Archie is kind of accepting his issues, yet still seeing himself as far detached from everybody else. The Cadet Leaps is almost a point where you imagine Archie just sat in his own world. No band, barely any vocals until the end, just Archie sitting alone, accompanied by the infectious and beautiful melodies he plays throughout the track, which flows so wonderfully into the next track, the title track, the OOZ, which to me is the breaking point for Archie. It's like the second Slush Puppy. He feels trapped, continuously asking if anyone is out there, if people can hear him. He searches for the girl, but he doesn't know why he even bothers. He questions if they could align, if they could meet here. Either way, he is alone at this point. He slips alone, he lets go, he progressively lets out his feelings on this song. This feels like the literal sense of oozing. He gets more and more emotional as the song goes on, and he speaks these things and finishes with the most emotional we hear Archie on the entire album, as he calls out to ask if anyone is out there a final time, and you are left with a poem that tells the tale of a girl that I can only assume Archie has been speaking of the entire album. This track truly is the breaking point in the album for me. The final two tracks discuss the same kind of issues faced throughout, but this is the most powerful we experience Archie's truths on this record. I think the crazy journey of this record alone is something to be amazed by, let alone how well it thrives off the realm it puts itself in. The dusty, broken sound of the record lends to Archie's lyrics and the amazing production. Ultimately, the OOZ is the representation of the name in the literal sense that Archie describes it. But also, Archie oozing out his feelings and the thoughts that he deals with on the regular. I think this album is overlooked and see it as Archie's best album. The best album from King Krule, and one of the greatest records of all time. In my opinion.
Let your mind stay desolate, a caught out of depth, featherweight floating away. The two-tone blues of today. Run the mood when you blow this way, there wasn't much more to say. I was born through the pain of a life, I was born through the pain of the strife of a long lost life. Looking out to the sea at night, but nothing ever really took flight. And when it got close, it took all your might, and you couldn't quite see this time. It drops like this, take the piss in the daily abyss and wage away. What the fuck can I say?